Hey everyone, Kevin here. In my last video, I mentioned how many companies are moving away from looking at portfolio websites and are instead giving out projects for applicants to do. Now, a couple of people in the comments brought up how this newer system can be exploitative, and that is a really important point to cover. It was just outside of the scope of the original video, so I didn't bring it up at the time, because I do agree with all of you. But I wanted to cover that right away, considering how important it is because no one wants to get taken advantage of. As a result, today's topic is when should I refuse to complete instructional design projects during an interview process? And the answer to that is a bit tricky. Now, remember, a portfolio is just a collection of work samples. Even if you tailor those work samples to about what you like creating, what you're good at creating, and what you want to be hired to create, you cannot always match them up perfectly to every job you apply to. It is exactly the same reason why it is virtually impossible to have a tailored resume for every single application. Projects given out by companies have the same goal and purpose in mind as a portfolio, to see you create a word sample for them to judge. Makes sense, right? The issue is that unfortunately, yes, some companies exploit this process. There is a very fine line between giving you something very generic to create a project on and them slyly finding a way to have you complete an existing project that the company is working on for free. Which is literally intellectual theft, by the way, because they take your work and pass it off as their own. Clearly, that's not a company you would want to work for, and who should be exposed to their clients for those unfair, if not illegal, business and labor practices. So this begs the question, how can I tell the difference? Well, for any of my former teachers out there, you might remember having to identify plagiarism, right? It happened a lot, especially during and following COVID. That is exactly what these particular companies are doing too when it really comes down to it. They're plagiarizing. What I need you to do now, though, is think as if you were the one doing the plagiarizing. It is a perspective flip that isn't always the easiest to do, but try for a moment. When you are invited for an interview, make sure to ask what kind of projects the company is currently working on, and if you can view any of their past trainings to know if you can see yourself doing that kind of work. Many will give you some really broad and generalized idea of what they are currently doing. When they say they want you to complete a project to prove your skills and see if you have what they need for you to move on to the next round of interviews, though, take some time to carefully read the project they give you. Does it sound or look like anything they are currently working on? Compare it to what they told you. If they didn't say anything, on the other hand, read the company's website and check to see who they partner with and if this project closely aligns with any of them. If the answer is yes to any of those questions, take a moment to pause. On the one hand, projects will have similarity to things that they do, but they should have distinct differences or just not be overly specific in their directions on the other hand. If the specificity is very high in the directions, that should be a bit of a red flag. Also, are they asking you for an entire project in a very short period of time, or just something small and manageable in that time frame? If it is the former, they may be trying to get you to complete something for free because they're on a deadline. Especially if it seems like they have a large company with a very small ID staff, which is something to check for on LinkedIn, by the way. If it is the latter, though, then it's a fair bet that they're legitimate and they just want to see what you can do. For instance, with my current role, I was required to complete a project, but all I had to do was essentially create the frame of a needs analysis, an extremely generalized training plan for a random topic, some learning objectives, questions for SMEs, and a couple of potential blockers. Oh, and most importantly, they paid me to create the project, so I wasn't doing it for no compensation either. Clearly, that's a great indicator too of a genuine company. Beyond that, though, I could tell this project couldn't be used for anything specifically because of just how broad and short it was. Sure, it took me a few hours to make, but that's it. It didn't take me weeks. Many projects I have seen could take you at least a week or longer and still not give you any guarantee of a job after completion. Worse yet, they might just plagiarize what you did. That time commitment and then having those results can be debilitating and infuriating. Plagiarism tends to look for exactly what they need. This is why students would often straight copy and paste information from a website like Wikipedia. Companies like this tend to do the same thing. They look for something extremely specific and want you to do it for them for no charge in the hope of getting a job. I actually prefer project over portfolios personally, but you have to be so careful in making sure that you aren't getting taken advantage of. Keep these few pointers in mind, and it will help ensure that you get paid what you are worth and that your intellectual property is not stolen. You put in the time and work, after all, it is yours. Always be at the ready to identify these underhanded tactics as they come along. No one, not even a freelancer, works for free. And keep in mind that I am always here to help you know if you are in fact getting scammed. See you next time.